I went to a primary school once and all the children were very happy, and the teacher said, that's because they've learned something. Whenever they learn something, they laugh and they're happy. Then I met somebody who's looking very youthful. I said, how do you manage this? And he said, laugh a day and lose a wrinkle. So you combine the two, learn something new every day, you'll laugh and lose the wrinkles. Yeah? Good. Okay, well, this all started as a, you know, us woody people, let's find this, we're a bit incestuous. It's a global club of many disciplines. And I wrote to all the friends I know and said, what does it for you? What's wonderful about wood? And they came back with all these suggestions for the 7 wonders of the wooden world. And it was clear there were so many, we could divide it up into 7 categories of 7 wonders. And if I knew somebody in the TV world, I think it could make a very nice little group of programs, and each one presented from a different country, you know. I'm listening, I'm waiting, just contact me. Before even considering the wooden world, and we're also totally in awe of trees. They've been doing their thing for 300 million years or so, and they found solutions to every problematic situation they find themselves in. So I feel quite humbled by that. Take, for example, height. Very useful for shading, getting more light, but height means a big investment in energy that you could otherwise spend on roots, seeds, making protective chemicals to fight off diseases and so on. And if you are taller, then you're at greater risk of being blown over by a high wind. The trees have found a solution to that. Have you ever tried siphoning water out of a barrel? Yep, in the garden? Not petrol out of fuel tanks, I'm sure. You'll know you can't suck water up more than a few feet, or theoretically, about 30 feet, 10 metres. Sorry?
32 foot,
well, that's in theory, but in actual fact, if you did it today, you wouldn't get anywhere near that because the water would boil off at reduced pressure. But anyway, the idea is that it can't go very far. So how can trees get water up hundreds of feet? Evolution dictates that you do the very least that gets the job done. You don't over-engineer anything, do you? So it follows that the whole system is a bit precarious. For instance, if you're sucking water up the tree, if air gets into the system, or if you tried siphoning as an air leak, it stops working. The water flow stops. Trees have solved that problem too. More about that in a moment. Here we are surrounded in the local hills by beech woods and hardwoods. There is nothing greener on the planet, surely, except perhaps Robinia trees when you see them. Robinia pseudoacacia, wonderful, I love it. The beech trees, they produce nuts. Trouble is that the nuts fall on the ground and there's a lovely population of squirrels and mice and everything to eat them, and the nuts don't survive. So the beech trees don't produce nuts every year. They'll starve the predators for a few years until the population shrunk, and then one year there's a massive amount of nuts produced. They call it the beech mast, and some of those will survive. Crafty beech trees, yeah? Or take South African acacias. When they get browsed by giraffes, the tree releases ethylene gas. And any tree downwind that detects ethylene gas is triggered into mass-producing tannins in the leaves that make them taste foul. Incredible. Now, that upsets the Darwinians. You know, philanthropy in trees, that's not supposed to happen. We reserve that for humans. Well, the first slide, please. It's easy to think of, let's look at the natural world first of all. It's easy to think of the biggest tree, like the General Sherman tree, Sequoia sempervirens in California. Certainly the most massive trees still alive, and the largest tree on Earth, estimated to contain 1,500 cubic metres of wood, weighing nearly 2,000 tonnes. There was a bigger one. They cut a hole through the middle of it. It blew down in the 1940s. Now, the Australians would argue, we've got the tallest trees, Eucalyptus grandis, the Eucalyptus regnans, the mountain ash, certainly the tallest flowering plant in the world. Currently, a little over 340 feet tall. They had one taller at the beginning of the 1900s. they cut it down so they could measure it, and it was 400. was 416 feet. Amazing. Okay. Next tree, please. Baobabs of Africa, sometimes called bottle trees for obvious reasons. The diameter is extraordinary. This one is 52 feet round. 52 feet diameter, 154 round, pi squared, yeah. Building a toilet inside this one is a brilliant idea because you're providing extra nitrogen to boost the growth. No fools, these people. Yeah. Next one, please. Oh, yes. That was my screensaver for a long time. It tickled my fancy. Next one. Bristlecone pines in Utah. They are the oldest living plants on the planet, well over 5,000 years old. And by counting the tree rings, you know, one tree ring growth every year, they were able to recalibrate the carbon-14 dating clock. Up until then, it was assumed that carbon-14 descended at a steady rate, but they found no. Carbon-14 levels have gone up and down. They were able to date things, get within 20 years now of carbon-14 dating. Extraordinary.
The previous picture you showed, was that a bog oak? And a bog oak?
Round of applause.
Will be.
It prompts me to think I should have included a slide on, if any of you go near Lincoln or Letchworth, I have to see which one. 10 years ago, they dug up a gigantic bog oak in the fens, and somebody had the inspiration to say we should make something. So they created a table that's 40 feet long. And the Americans said, we'll provide you with a one-off special sawmill to cut this 40-foot long tree. The Italians said, we'll provide you with a one-off special drying kiln and also machinery to process it. And they built this incredible table, and it's in a different cathedral for 2 years at a time. And I think it's Lincoln or Letchworth at the minute. Truly incredible. The outside of a tree has waney edges, isn't it? They took a board from below that and matched that waney edge, so you have a lift-up extension leaf that exactly matches the wane.
Wow.
And if you want to hire the table for a banquet, the cathedral will be very happy to have your money. Good. Right, next one. Cork oak from the Iberian Peninsula. I presume cork evolved as an insulating protective shield, and yet they can strip the bark off very soft and the tree survives. Isn't that extraordinary? Wonderful material. Not just bottle stoppers, of course, but also for flooring and shoes. They used it on the space shuttle, to line the space shuttle. Yeah, and they strip it every 7 years or so. Next one.
Sorry, can I just
Yeah.
stop the cork oak? Is it an evergreen oak or is it a deciduous oak?
Good point. I've never thought of that. I'll find out for you. Right, mangroves. Now my colleague Simon Cragg at Portsmouth, he's a great mangrove expert. Consider this. Here's a tree that grows in salt water. There's a challenge. You know, how do they cope with salt? Well, they exude salt on the surface of their roots. They don't actually have a trunk in the ground. They stand on these stilts. And that mass of roots slows down the movement of tidal water and sediment, creating a whole microenvironment for fish and crabs and everything else. Wonderful. Yeah. I should have gone on there on another occasion we can consider, if you turn the magnification up a few thousand times, wood at the extreme microscopic level is so beautiful. If I come back to this idea of sucking water up the tree, inevitably the water column will break occasionally, and that could be fatal to the plant. So they've evolved a special valve in the cell wall, and there are two holes in each adjacent cell wall and a washer suspended on elastic threads in between. So the tree's growing happily, water's moving up the tree, goes in one hole round the valve and up to the next cell. If the column breaks, that pad snaps over, isolating that cell. Doesn't matter, that cell's out of action. There are a few trillion more of them. And they're very beautiful to look at, but we need, I'll send you some microscopic images. There too. Next one, works of art, ancient, the Great Bed of Ware, 10 feet by 11 feet. Find that on Airbnb. Just, yeah. Say on Airbnb, you need to find 4 other friendly couples because it was designed to accommodate 4 couples.
Where do you find the sheets big enough?
Yes. It was made by a Hertfordshire craftsman between 1590 and 1600. Fabulous, I know. Exquisitely decorated. Next one. Islamic carvings. I wish I had better photographs, but it's just how you get that level of detail in carving. Freely. Next one. Stradivarius violins. Well, yep. Okay. Noted for their sonority and power. Each one valued in millions. His workshop was based in Cremona in Italy, remember? And Richard Stilgo, a comedian, once told me the story. He says one day they made a mistake when they changed over to metrication in the drawings, and it came out 10 times too big. So Mr. Stradivarius said, no problem, we'll call it the Cremona Extra Large Leg Over. Cello for short. All right. Next one. Off you go to Petworth House, Grinley Gibbons carvings. Listen, it's just incredible. That level of detail in... My mother would have destroyed that with dusting straight away. None of my Airfix kits survived. Not one. Nextly.
Violin, I believe they're about 300 years old, most of the violins, and the trees that were used for them, wood, it's about 300 years as well. So actually the timber was grown in like the 1400s to actually make those violins.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, violin makers, I'm a little bit sceptical. They say your soundboard must come from a spruce tree on the northern face of a Swiss mountain above the 8,000 foot level and must be felled under the new moon after killing a virgin. And all this rubbish. Rubbish. Okay. Trojan horse.
I would agree with them.
This is from a Cecil B. DeMille movie, of course. Okay. Wonder what the original was like. Next one, please. Right. I heard a radio programme where the director of the British Museum was asked what was the most valuable thing in their collection, and he said, without a moment's hesitation, it's the Vindelander tablets. They were discovered at a fort on Hadrian's Wall. They're only pine, and by some freak they got preserved in waterlogged ground. And they say mundane things. There are hundreds of them. You can call them all up on the net. They say mundane things like, come over for a meal next Sunday. Or, I love this one, dear mum, please send more socks. How long did it take for his tablet to reach Rome and come back again with a pair of socks? Anyway, yeah. Next one. Well, of course, you know, my wife's Polish, so I have particular interests in Poland. Go to Krakow, which is... Anybody been to Krakow? Yes. You had a good time there? You eat well, you drink well, service is good, and as you get older, you become invisible to the girls, so you can look, but nobody must. Right, anyway, sorry. This is the altarpiece in the cathedral there. It's massive. It weighs over 3 tons. When its doors are closed, the carved panels depict religious scenes, and when you open it, reveals more like this. The Nazi invaders carted the whole lot off and it disappeared, but it was found in a cellar in Nuremberg, so it survived. Wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to go and see. Okay, next thing. Modern works of art. Well, you can go on forever. The Gibson Les Paul, the first electric guitar. Revolutionary in every way and now probably priceless. Nextly. Right, now I know Tim's sort of looking at this and thinking what's so special about that, but it's all in oak, and you don't carve oak very easily, you know, and it's in a private chapel, and the owner won't reveal where it is, so I haven't personally seen it. But nextly, pyrography. Did I bring lady here to demonstrate? I did.
Yeah.
Pyrography. I look forward to every Christmas. She sends me her latest creation. Absolutely incredible. I mean, modern pyrography tends to be a bit crude, sort of burning it with like poker work. But they could create effectively half-tone photographs, all with this sort of tint. Fabulous, yeah. I mean, she sent me one where she'd made a pomander on a sphere. You think, how do you do that? Oh. An artist, right? Okay. Ancient structures, right? Biskupin in Poland, it's a village that got flooded very quickly, and that preserved it. So that's as they excavated it. And next one, as they reconstructed it, what it used to look like. Next, Seahenge in Norfolk. Freak seas and tides expose this. Immediately, Druids appeared from nowhere and claimed it was their sacred temple. But I don't think much is known about it, but yeah.
How big is that?
The central thing is an oak stump, about that diameter, upside down. So you think of the creation of that. Nextly, Norwegian stave churches. Now, I have a lot to do with surveyors of old buildings and things, and I say to them, get yourself over to Norway and look closely at how these are built and why they've lasted 1,000 years, the building details. And the director there said to me, for a wooden house, you must give it a good hat and a good pair of boots. Well, a good pair of boots means you don't start building in wood until you're a metre off the ground in masonry. And a good hat means you give it jolly good eaves overhang. But you get into closer detail, the roof has shingle tiles, but underneath that it's got birch bark pan tiles, which are like that, which are waterproof but vapour permeable. Brilliant, you know. And the vertical walls are set into a sill beam, in a groove in a sill beam. Look closely, that groove has got drainage holes drilled at 45 degrees all the way around. 1,000 years ago? Yeah, there's a little bit more to the secret of success, actually, but still remarkable. Nextly, this is just incredible. It was only about 50 years ago that they could work out why this lantern tower stood up. The next picture. That's the woodwork for the lantern tower. Now, those vertical columns are 16 inches square, 60 feet long. Where are you going to find those? Apparently, the tree ring dating people came in, they found they came from Bedfordshire. Okay, how did you cut them? How did you get them there? How did you get them up there? Ring up Mequip, send me a 35-ton mobile tomorrow, you know? That's just incredible. But it's set into the masonry and its geometry just sort of holds it there. There's no positive location. I do recommend that. Nextly, Westminster Hall, that's accessible to everybody. Yeah, great hammer beam roof, 1340 I think that was. Yep. Nextly, right. While you're in Krakow, take a trip out to the salt mines at Wieliczka. It's a great day out. Go in a t-shirt because it's warm underground. It's totally dry so that you don't get hot and sweaty. And in the 1700s, they decided we have to hold the roof up. So they just built this structure because it seemed the right way to do it. And the salt has preserved it all perfectly. And as you go around the mine, you find that everything was preserved by the salt. Rope, horse harness, everything. It's just magic. And down there, there's, my daughter, whose younger daughter, is very keen on swing dancing, went to a swing dance festival there in the ballroom, which has chandeliers made of rock salt. And statues, just looks like a statue, until the guide goes behind it and shines her torch right through the salt. You know? It's a wonderful thing to see. Yeah. Okay, next one. Yeah, impressive, just for its size, like everything in America, is it? Yes. But from an engineering point of view, it's not very sophisticated, is it? I think Brunel did it better. Actually,
Well, it's good enough. Is it good enough?
what, the American one?
Yes, to do its job.
Well, if you had to repair it, how did you do it? And
Do you need to repair it?
undoubtedly. When Brunel built the Cornwall Railway, time was of the essence, money was tight. So where you had to build viaducts, notice this viaduct is on a slight curve, which is pretty clever. Bit of masonry, and then these fan trusses at the top. There are a whole series of them. And in his design, you could replace any component without stopping the traffic. That is clever, yeah, really clever. In due course, the trains got too heavy and maintenance got too high, so they replaced it completely with masonry. And I thought, well, what do you do with 100,000 cubic feet of wood? You wouldn't scrap it. No, they auctioned it off. And in my research, I've got as far as finding the adverts for the auctions, but I'd like to find out what happened to the wood, because Brunel's favourite wood preservative was mercury perchlorate, which is a wonderful fungicide, a wonderful insecticide, and not a bad homicide. You know? So I'm sure there are houses and agricultural buildings particularly full of this stuff. Be very interesting. Okay, next. Well, my friend in Beijing said you've got to have the Yellow Crane Tower. Built in 223, been rebuilt a few times, of course. And next one, I can't pronounce that, but Yin Yang. Built in 1056. There is no metal in its construction at all. And it has survived storms, earthquakes, and lightning. No metal in its construction, so lightning will do much damage. 67 metres tall, 3,000 tonnes. And in the detail, intermediate floors, we've got columns, and they have spreaders at the top, which distribute the load of the next floor over a large area. So if there's an earthquake, everything just slides with a bit of friction. And so it's survived that. So I think that'll do for ancient structures. Next to the modern structures, could go on forever with this one. Well, the Stadthaus in Hackney. Modern way of building with wood is mass timber. In a factory, we prefabricate all the walls, and we can put in the factory, put in the windows, doors, plumbing, electricity, the whole lot. It arrives on site, cranes lift the section into position, and then a team of 3 people with cordless screwdrivers put it together. The Stadthaus is 9 stories. It went up 1 story every 4 days. No water in its construction, dry construction. And I went to the presentation with the architects. Said, gosh, your clients were really green, weren't they? All ticks every environmental box. He said, well, no, because it went up so quickly, 3 months as opposed to 30 months, they got the rent coming in sooner. That's sad, isn't it? Anyway, that was a pioneer in London. We've got bigger ones in London now. But nextly, the view I've got hides the lower half of this. It's 22 stories altogether. Yeah, all wood. And they are proposing to go higher. But people have complained that in high winds, the top sways a little bit. It's for them, not for me. So they now propose having outriggers with guy ropes to steady it. Next. I want to go to Seville to see this. Now just imagine you're an architect, you come up with this design, and you go to the people who are going to pay the money and say, look, I've got this wonderful design, beautiful structure, it doesn't do anything, and I want 16 million for it to build it. And they went for it. All right, it does have street markets underneath it, but you can walk around on the top. It's all made of birch plywood. That's just fantastic, isn't it? Somebody with a vision. Next. Well, glue-lam bridges are very commonplace anywhere but Britain. we've got a number in Britain. There's a nice one on the A4. It's over a Millennium Cycle route. I wish I had a picture of it because it's got a glue laminated arch, but it's not in a straight line. It's leaning over, and that arch has ropes on it which are attached to levers. And one end of the lever has the bridge, the deck, and the other end of the lever has a cable that holds the lever down. This is how you make it complicated. And they call it a live bridge, which is another way of saying wobbly, maybe. But it's very striking. Anyway, this is a standard Scandinavian bridge for 50 tons, standard European lorries. Yeah. Next. The Essing Bridge was the first ribbon bridge where we just glue laminated wood, and it's just a tension member. It's just a cable with a natural sag to it. Better still, in Holland, there's one which is 250 metres long, but that's a pedestrian bridge. Yeah. Like that. Next. Right. Went to Norway. I'd read about this. For the Winter Olympics in 1994, they built a number of ice rink structures, and this is Håkonshall. I went there and I knew it was big. It's 94 metres clear span. You know, 94, think how long it takes you to run 100 metres. And the architect's got to think, well, it might be 3 metres of snow on the roof, plus my safety margins and the wind and all the rest. This is pushing the frontier, so fabulous. Next. Yeah, from the outside. Next. Inside. Wonderful. Next. Get carried away. Well, preceding glue lam like that was the Tacoma Dome, which was a pioneering grid shell structure. I forget the span of the Tacoma Dome. 530 feet clear span. And it had a fire. The roof covering burnt off, but the main supporting structure was undamaged, a bit singed, but they cleaned it up and recovered it, survived that. A good example of fire endurance in wood. Wood does burn, but in a totally predictable fashion. Yep, next. Next. This is still standing. It's the Gliwice Tower in Poland. It's 387 feet tall, and it has no metal in its structure at all, because it was used for radar research. And now it became the medium wave transmitter, and the Germans staged an attack on it, and that was their excuse for invasion, to liberate the Polish free radio. Yeah. Anyway, that's a structure great to see. Next, bamboo scaffolding. Yeah. Now, strangely, I went to a presentation 2 months ago by a lady her field was bamboo scaffolding and fire. And you know, there was a big fire in Hong Kong a year ago, great loss of life. The bamboo scaffolding was supporting a plastic weather membrane while they did the works, and it was the weather membrane that caught fire. Anyway, it's a well-distributed load. Next. Yeah. Is there no limit? Next. All right. I was going to add on there one which could have added in. There's a viaduct over the Great Salt Lake in Utah called the Lucin Cutoff for the railway. And it's 11.5 miles long across the Great Salt Lake. It took 70 square miles of forest to build it. And although the lake's only 30 feet deep, as they drove the piles, sometimes a pile would turn 30 feet and solid. Other times, it's mud at the bottom, and a pile would disappear, bolt on another pile, maybe go down 100 feet. So a vast amount of wood, all protected by the very high salinity of the Great Salt Lake. But eventually the trains got too heavy and the maintenance got too high, so they built an alternative route, which in a separate talk turned out to be a major environmental disaster. And there the Lucin Bridge stayed there, and then father and son team went to the railway company and said, could we buy the bridge, buy the viaduct? And they said, well, why don't you just pay us as you salvage it? So they bought a barge and put a JCB on it, and as they pull it out, it's wonderful timber, you know, virgin stuff. They process it and sell it, and wonderful. Good, good, right. Next. Oh yes, if you're in Dover, you have to see this. It's in the top floor of the town library, and about 20 years ago they dug this up. It's a boat that was buried very quickly in freshwater mud, which preserved it perfectly. It's all oak. Now you think, 1600 BC, how did you work oak? It's not easy material. And they split planks off and worked them with a half-lap joint, and then with timbers to brace them together, so preserved that the mastic that made it watertight is still there. And it's moss and beeswax. Yeah, it's great. And they found that its cargo, it was bringing worn-out bronze tools from the continent for reworking here. There's a trade route, yeah. Next. Well, if you're going to Oslo, you have to go and see Viking longships, don't you? You think of taking that across the Atlantic?
There's one in Iceland as well.
Sorry?
There's a complete one in Iceland.
Yeah, yeah. And there are so many lovely details in it, like the rudder. It was a balanced rudder, so the rudder pivoted around the middle, so there was a force there to counterbalance the thrust of the other face. That's genius. Okay, next. Vasa in Stockholm. I had dinner on there. Yeah, I had the International Research Group on Wood Protection had a meeting in Stockholm, and they arranged for a banquet at Vasa. It sank on its maiden voyage, as as great shipwrecks happen, don't they? And in the brackish water of the Baltic, it was preserved, and they knew it was there. You avoided it because you'd spoil your fishing gear. And eventually, they decided to lift it, and some heroic divers worked their way underneath it to get cables underneath it, and then just using the force of the tide, the tidal range is only a metre there. They got it until the coaming was above water level, and they could pump it out, and it floated into its new dry dock. Then followed 20 years of spraying it with polyethylene glycol to preserve it. Yeah. And everything was preserved. Clothing, rigging, the lot. Good visit. Apparently, they told me it wasn't designed to be a fighting ship. It was just so totally magnificent. You sailed off to your potential enemy and said, look what we can do. And they said, keep away, yeah. Next. Well, Cecil B. DeMille again. That was his Noah's Ark. Next. All right. I was going to add the Brave Challenger offshore fast patrol boat by Vosper Marine in Southampton. Cold moulded plywood, powered by 3 Rolls-Royce Proteus gas turbines. No messing about. Let's have 3 Proteus turbines. 60 knots, 2,000 mile range, 13,000 horsepower. No messing. And I could have added the James Caird boat, when Shackleton made his extraordinary escape from Elephant Island to South Georgia. You see that in Greenwich. Incredible. Yeah. Nextly then, that leaves aviation. Well, I won't include the Wright brothers or Louis Blériot, because if you've seen those, I'm sure you feel you could knock one of those up this weekend in the garage, couldn't you? But the Spruce Goose was short. It was the largest wooden aircraft ever created, preserved in Long Beach, California. It flew once, but it probably didn't really fly. It had ground effect, so it was more of a hovercraft, and bigger than a jumbo, bigger than a 747. And they called it the Spruce Goose, but it didn't actually have any spruce in it. It was all birch plywood. Right, next. Wow. Mosquito bomber. Go to de Havilland at North London. This was a genius bit of design, because at the time, aluminium, aircraft technicians, all in very short supply, but we had an awful lot of competent people in furniture factories. So de Havilland came up with the all-wood design that we could turn the furniture factories to. It's made of two U-shaped mouldings, plywood, balsa wood, with the grain running the thickness of the panel, more balsa wood, and then you scarf jointed the two U-shaped halves together. So the fuselage didn't need any bulkheads. It was incredibly stiff. Wings ditto. And it had no armament. Its protection was its speed. It was, the quotes here, 325 in the cruise, 400 at top speed. And that was its protection. And there's some wonderful photographs of the aircraft on the ground. The technician there looking at the wing with lots of bullet holes and shrapnel holes in it. He's got patches and a pot of glue and an electric iron. But they developed it to, I think, up to Mark 11 or something. It was pressurized for high altitude work. Pat on the back for that. And finally, I think, last picture, the Gervais Ibis. This is an all-wood light aircraft which you can build from a kit if you like. 150 miles an hour at 43 miles to the gallon. Won't get me in it, but you notice the canard design with the tailplane at the front. As the plane flies slower, you get less lift and the nose droops, and so you can't stall it. It's an intrinsically safe aircraft. Yeah, handsome. So anyway, those are the thoughts that came back. You'll have lots more, so please send them to me. We'll update this whole story. Yeah? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, it's a great talk and really good to see all that. Do anyone have any questions at all?
If you want to take that out to school, so happily send it all to you. You know.
Going putting some fence posts in, what's the best thing to preserve posts that you're going to put in the ground?
Ground contact. Use class 4. Worst situation you can do. You want the low-cost version or the high-cost version?
The one that works.
Bury it in a plastic rubble sack. Yeah, and put gaffer tape round to seal it. Yeah, keep the wood out of ground contact. It's fine. And if you conceal the top of the post with some bituminous paint to stop water penetrating the top, you stand a better chance. Preservative treatments, since that's my field, I'm supposed to recommend pressure impregnation. You know, if you go to any timber supplier's website, they offer you pressure treated wood, yes, and they'll use these phrases: treated at high pressure for deep penetration. Sex sells everything, doesn't it? You know. The truth is that spruce posts that you buy in Wicks or B&Q, penetration after 4 hours at 12 bars pressure, 1 millimetre. And as soon as you've got through that millimetre, which will happen because the sun's shining, the wood shrinks, split opens up, fungi get in. Disaster. If you go to a proper fencing supplier, it'll be Scots pine posts, which has a wide sapwood, which takes up wood preservative very well, and you stand a better chance. Yeah. Sorry.
If you want to clad your door, garage door, which is made of common garden wood, say, with this plastic pretty stuff to make it look pretty, is there any sort of advice about keeping the wood behind it from going off? Or does the plastic in the front do a good job?
It should do, but any detailing that keeps the water out,
Yes.
that you can arrange, flashings, overhangs, yeah. I'm a great fan of water repellents for your garden furniture. You know, you'll make that last a bit longer, or cladding, wooden cladding. Water repellents are largely silicones, and they'll shed liquid water. You just throw it off as beads, but as soon as drying conditions occur, which is the most of the time, water vapour freely gets out again. And I've seen test racks of this where wood, after something like 8 years, it's still wood coloured, hasn't gone grey. And it comes in like yogurt in a bucket, and with a soft lamb, with a brush or a soft lambswool roller, trowel it on thickly, and in a couple of days it'll all be absorbed. Terrific stuff. Yeah. Roxil's the best known name. You should be able to get that anywhere.
all these questions about preserving wood, but it brings me to mind Venice, piles. I mean, there's a whole city that was, when I visited Venice, that was the thing that impressed me, was you know, they've been there 100 years, and yet and huge monumental architecture built on it.
If wood is saturated completely underwater, there isn't enough oxygen to support decay. Where you've got, I don't know if you've seen in Venice, there are piles in the open water that people moor their boats to or something. Well, there's a little crustacean called Limnoria, which is the gribble, and what it lacks in size, it makes up in numbers. So a few million of them in the space between low and high tide, they scrape away the surface of the wood, making it very soft. Passing wave from a motorboat washes that off, they get going another bit. So after a few years, your pile has a perfect waste in it like this. Yeah. So marine borers, we've got no treatment for that. There's nothing allowed.
But they used to use green heart for underwater use.
Green heart.
And things like that.
Green heart is my favourite timber. It's the ultimate. It's the strongest wood going. Wherever I want a wooden spring on a piece of furniture, green heart. You just learn to use it carefully because any splinter will do you terrible mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch the splinters.
Yeah, no splinters, definitely not, and no dust. And it's surprisingly cheap because it comes in huge bits, and because it lasts so long, it's salvaged. You can probably find it seaside locally. Yeah.
You haven't included the mathematical bridge in Cambridge.
That's fun, isn't it? Yes, yeah. Or the Leonardo Bridge, you know, which all these interlocking. The thing that upset me about the Leonardo Bridge, they quote it, but who could cross a bridge that was shaped like that? Yeah.
Are there any more questions? I will call it time. So yeah, thank
Good.
you very much, both.
Thank you.